change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
We're back for another episode of the Fundraising AI podcast. We are ready to rock and roll. I think we titled this episode Lovable, Repellent, Firebase, and Anti-Gravity, Oh My. But that's actually, I'm just joking. It's not the official title. I was just on the phone with a friend, Dave Raley, who many people know from his book on monthly giving and kind of being that person. I said those words and he goes, I have no idea what half of those words were. And so I'm aware of that. Sometimes we speak Greek. But we'll explain it to you. This is going to be a fun episode. This episode really is a manifestation of a sleepless night. It wasn't fully sleepless. I woke up at 3 a.m. and then kind of in this panic around all things AI, ended up writing an article that's resonated really well. And it's led to like this flurry of activity this week and kind of, I don't know, energizing. You even created an app last night, I think, in part because of this, because I was talking about the stuff.
I did. You told me I was missing out. And so I went on it. I created an app and now I'm thinking about all the other apps I can create.
Yeah. So we'll talk everyone through this. So there's a lot going on in the world of AI. So it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded a podcast because we've been busy with holidays, all that kind of stuff. And next episode, we're going to do a look back and a look forward. So this will be good. So before the end of the year, we're going to look back at what our observations are for 2025, and then really a look through the mirror or whatever, the looking glass for 2026 and see what we think is going to happen. So it should be fun. I know.
2026.
You're just shivering.
I don't even know what to think about 2026 right now.
Yeah. No, it's a lot. You and I both listen and read a lot on the future of AI, and it either goes from, in fact, I posted about this week. I read 2 books back to back, and I don't know if you saw this post, but the one book was Reid Hoffman's book called Super Agency, which is like the most optimistic, glowing book ever written about AI. Like it's just going to, it's like
love letter to AI.
It is a love letter to us from AI and how it's going to solve all of our problems and everything's going to be great. And then read mostly on airplanes, the book, If Anybody Builds It, Everyone Dies. And it's just like the juxtaposition of that. I just thought it was so ironic. And there's truth in all of those things. And so how do we think about next year? How do we think about how far out can we actually accurately predict? One thing that we've learned, I think this is the biggest observation over the last 3 years, because we just hit the 3-year anniversary of ChatGPT, is that we're really bad at predicting things.
That's a fair summary.
Right. Because like our entire lives are based on this like fixed timeline where things are essentially static and achieved through hard work or specific like advances, not exponential advances. So we have no framework as humans to predict things that are exponential. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like we couldn't have been more wrong about where we'd be today 3 years ago when ChatGPT was released. It just would be too hard to imagine that we would be vibe coding apps in your pajamas and deploying things like at scale, sitting in your living room or at a coffee shop. So we'll go through all that. There's a lot going on that. There's a resurgence and a belief that, it went from a few months ago, we were talking about an MIT report where only 5% of organizations were seeing the ROI in AI, to a new report that basically MIT published. And this is funny too, because MIT is like living in both worlds as well. Their new report says AI can already replace 11.7% of the US workforce. And that's just basically the beginning. So I don't know. I think we're going to recap a lot this today and just kind of go for it.
There's also one of your favorite tools has updates. Notebook LM, pretty exciting updates that people who aren't even aware of it have probably seen like a trend on LinkedIn or their social media preferences. And then there's a newest best model ever that was released and predictions of the next best model ever to be coming out in the near future. So yeah, we got a good amount to cover.
Yeah, let's go for it. So let's start macro because, my 3 a.m. wake up was really probably more inspired as a parent. And so I'm, a parent of 2 boys. One of my sons is like off the charts in terms of just his intelligence. He finished undergrad in 3 years with a perfect GPA and his master's in 1 year with a perfect GPA. It's just stuff comes so easily to him, but he's also very rigid. And so when I was waking up thinking about the intelligence explosion. So for those that haven't been following along, we're at a path with AI. AI is essentially building itself, right? We're just continuing to exponentially grow the power of AI. It's no longer writing a poem about your dog having a picnic on the moon. It's literally writing code and deploying apps while you're in your pajamas. And when you get to the intelligence explosion, it essentially means that intelligence becomes free or nearly free. So if you have PhD level education or intelligence at your fingertips in every domain, which is what AGI is, artificial general intelligence, gets us to a point where there's PhD level experience or education on every topic, right? Any topic that you can imagine. Essentially, intelligence becomes not worthless, but it becomes devalued significantly. So what really matters is adaptability. So it's curiosity and adaptability, which we've talked about a lot on this podcast. So it's interesting because my older son, Toby, who I was describing, he has this friend, Connor, and Connor's probably listening to this podcast. Connor has like tons of curiosity. He's just like the built-in entrepreneur of like, I want to create new things. I want to create new things. But he actually lacks a little bit of focus. And so the two of them are actually this insanely powerful combination. So I was like, I woke up at 3 a.m. I wrote an article on LinkedIn. It's actually the most read article I've ever written because I think delicately, I don't know if you've read it, but it's kind of long. I think it delicately points out the tension that most people are living in. Like the world has shifted. It's going to continue to shift. What the rules of business or the rules of success are not what they will be. And so I write this article, we go to breakfast together, both of them bring their laptop. And I kid you not, like I didn't intend for this to happen. I just wanted it to be kind of like as a parent coaching session of like, guys, like you need to see this opportunity. If you don't, you're going to be obsolete. Like if you spend a majority of your time behind a screen, you will be obsolete. So they both brought their laptops, I think instinctually, because they're young and that's what they do. In the middle of this coffee shop called the Grindstone Cowboy, which who doesn't like that name? They start literally pulling up and building an app. Toby starts making this app and he's like building it. And then Connor's like, well, I want to build the same app, but using another platform. So it's kind of like a mini hackathon in the middle of this restaurant. And honestly, both of them got fully functioning apps within like an hour. It's like absolutely. And I'm sitting there, I know this stuff is possible, but I'm still sitting there thinking, how did this just happen? This is like weeks, probably months in my experience, my background of like build the plan, assemble a team, code, recode, fix bugs, blah, 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 and then finally deploy. Yeah. And if you've seen, I think you just used, we're using Lovable yesterday.
I used Firebase.
Oh, Firebase. Yeah. Firebase is like insane. And so it's literally writing code for you, and then it's actually finding bugs in its own code. And it's like, wait a minute. And literally it will say language like, wait a minute, there's an error here. I'm going to go fix that. And then it goes fix and it writes like another, couple hundred lines of code and just like fixes that. It's absolutely crazy. And so, all of this comes from this, like as a parent wanting your kids to be successful and navigate a future of like increasing change. As a professional, that you and I are very much in the same role of like, there's teams that have a certain amount of curiosity, but there's lots of potential that you could unlock if people rethought their work from the beginning. And so all of those things. And as someone who just always has a fear of being replaced on my own. So all of these fears, like I was feeling this stuff and I just wrote this vulnerable thing and it's like, okay, well, apparently other people are feeling that too. And so I think that's the takeaway is that you're in good company. And that we've got to have honest, authentic conversations with each other.
Yeah. And thinking about that, like, I can't tell you how many projects I built over my career and like, oh, this thing's going to be awesome. And I spent a lot of time on it. I built it out and then like it fell by the wayside, right? There are probably so many in my OneDrive folder or Google Drive folder of just like half finished projects, right? Because it was left up to me to finish it. Mm-hmm. So now, think about your son who's so focused, and then Connor who has a hard time focusing, but like so many great ideas. There's going to be opportunities for if you focused, you build something out, but then there's also going to be opportunities for you to get distracted because so many people are building these, like there's going to be so much noise. So it's a constant balance of good or bad, right? Beneficial or detrimental. Like if you get lost in distractions, there's going to be 1,000x distractions that are available to you now, right?
Yeah.
1,000 like half-cocked apps that are out there available because somebody just thought it's a cool idea, published it, and then never thought about it again, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to do something that has never been done or benefits you and you alone, like you can 1,000% do that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about this probably going back at least 2 years, entrepreneurial overwhelm. I remember feeling this when I spoke at a Gen AI conference 2 years ago in Vegas. And it was like, man, if you're an entrepreneur by nature, whether you work for a company or whether you've created companies, or it's something that you just know that you are. And it's your orientation around life and what you look at, how you look at possibilities. And if you travel overseas, like, and this is for me, like everything is possible. You go overseas, you're like, oh my gosh, why this and why that? And all these things that you've taken for granted are different. And there's just opportunity in all those experiences. That can be debilitating because you're just like, okay, now everything is possible. I've got the ability to like spend every waking moment vibe coding stuff and put, and actually test those ideas out with like synthetic role playing kind of experiences to vet all those, instead of like months of market research where you're putting it out there, wasting lots of money to find out that there weren't good ideas to begin with. You can actually run simulations with your AI to see if they have potential. And you could do that in an afternoon. And so it's where do you focus your time. So I do think the winning combination is still intelligence and adaptability with curiosity and focus. Like I think, if you can kind of balance between those things and recognize the good and the bad traits in that. I will say the alternative, the one area that basically is just screwed, is those that are not curious and not adaptable and not intelligent, but also not wanting to see another result because things are shifting dramatically, exponentially. And just putting your head in the sand and pretending that everything's going to be fine is not right. And I think that was the essence of my letter. It was just like telling people that they're going to be fine. I've had to share some kind of difficult news with people who are like, is my job going to change? Like in prospect research, I'm like, your job is absolutely going to change. And me telling you that it's going to be fine is not kind.
Yeah.
Right? That's not love. Like me telling you, yes, your job is going to change. You should spend a significant amount of time learning how to leverage these tools and techniques to actually augment and improve your work to become invaluable to your organization. Now, a lot of people don't want to, they see that as change and they see that as a threat. At the end of the day, I think I'm kind of done just being nice and just being direct. Like we're seeing unprecedented change and we're going to see a lot more over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And I think that segues into another thing. You sent me the video, didn't have time to watch it. You gave me a synopsis, thank you very much, of Ilya Sutskever formerly of OpenAI, now has a startup where he's given billions of dollars to not produce anything until he has safe artificial general intelligence or super intelligence. But what did you say he said there? That like what we've seen so far is nothing compared to what's coming, and it's just going to grow exponentially.
Yeah, we saw this, you and I saw this with even fundraising AI, where we were at maybe it was Icon or something, and we posted a question is like, what if everything goes right? Right. And I remember this distinctly because it's like, we try to pose like these big questions when we have a group of 50 to 100 people. And it's like, what if everything goes right? What does it look like? And it was so enlightening to me because around the room, I mean, some of the smartest people in our industry described futures that looked almost exactly like today. And so Ilya's basically saying the same thing. He's like, look, we're really bad at predicting things. And it's really difficult because we keep on even like, and he's probably definitively one of the top 10 smartest people in AI, like literally is the reason pretty much. I mean, like he was like in founding in neural networks and why generative AI is generative AI. He's like, it's really, really hard to describe a future that looks different than today. And it's like the frog kind of boiling in the water. It's just kind of slow. And then all of a sudden it will be here. And then it's going to create sheer panic because it will actually be here. Because it's just, we're not good at projecting future that looks exponentially different. And part of it, the other part of the video, and he doesn't do a lot of interviews. You and I both met him, and he is not someone with a lot of words.
No, he's not a talker. He would
almost, right. I mean, he's not a talker. And this on the Dwarkish podcast, Dwarkish Patel is a great podcast. He just like rambles and all this stuff. And one of the other takeaways was like, isn't it crazy that this is even real? like how bad AI is, which he acknowledges, right? And how bad it is, but it's not how bad it will be, right? But it's like living in a sci-fi movie. So like even for him to say that, it's like, isn't it crazy how much these models can do? And all we're talking about is how bad they are. I mean, it's just absolutely kind of bonkers.
And so going back to what you were saying about how it would be cruel to tell people that your job is secure, right? Your job has already changed. Right. The landscape has already changed. And so like if you haven't started yet, you need to start. What did they say about planting a tree? Best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago. The second best time is today. Right. Like start today with something. Again, have ChatGPT help you, or Gemini now help you figure it out. But it would be even crueler to say your job is secure and it's going to be secure.
Right.
There's nothing to worry about in the future. Yeah, that is not the case. Even if it's not linear, it's exponential. So even if it was linear, that would still be cruel.
Yeah. Your job title may not have changed, but your job has. And the expectations of what success looks like is absolutely changed. And how the next person that does your job gets hired has changed. And how the person that gets promoted based on what they're able to contribute to your organization has changed. That's a fact. And so if you spend your day in sales meeting with humans like one-on-one, you're in pretty good shape. But if you spend a lot of time behind a computer, then your job is fundamentally changed. And it's a good time to kind of pivot into the agentic side. Of course, we've been talking about agentic way before it was cool. And it's also funny because whenever I'm in an audience with like, a few hundred people, I always like to ask, it's like my litmus test is like, how many know the term agentic? And how many have used Notebook LM? It's like for me is like literally always litmus test to like know what audience I'm speaking to. And it's like very, very few. So agentic AI really resembles a type of AI that it means agent. So agentic is agents. Agents can actually create their own AI to achieve lots of different tasks, and not sequentially, but like all at the same time. And so they take on the form of almost like intuition, where it's like we process in our brains so quickly, and it's like, well, if I'm going to do this thing, it requires 5 movements, and I know which ones intuitively, which ones to do in which order, and some of them have prerequisites and some of them don't. So agents can do this, and they're definitely not at human level, but agentic AI opens up this entirely new realm that, frankly, like even if I'm thinking about Virtuous next year, I'm not thinking about how do we enable AI for acceleration. I'm only thinking about how do we teach our team how to build agents and how to manage them, because using ChatGPT to write an email or a job description or do something is absolutely child play. What's really going to move the needle in organizations is actually automating mundane things and really accelerating, like in prototyping the work that's important from a high yield perspective. So in that realm, there's a form of coding, and I don't know if people know this term, but vibe coding has been around for a while. But vibe coding is essentially you or I, who I'm not a software engineer. I can read and write HTML pretty well still because I had to back in 1997 when you build a website that you kind of forced to. Hiring people that spoke HTML is really, really expensive. But vibe coding is literally like any person just speaking to a computer essentially, or typing to a computer and saying, build me an app that does whatever, takes a photo of a meal that I'm going to have and provides me the recipe for it. And then take that recipe and email it to, everyone, my top 10 friends, whatever it is. So,
and order all the groceries off of DoorDash or whatever.
Great. Great. Yeah. Order the groceries and have them delivered at my door. And so Agentic can do all those things, and vibe coding allows this to happen. Now, the challenge with vibe coding has been that you could prototype things with vibe coding very easily. So there's an app called Lovable. There's Replit is actually, I think, still bigger than Lovable, but Replit and Lovable are really well-known vibe coding apps that you could be like, create me an app. And it's just super cool. It's like you're watching the Matrix. It's like all this code is running and it's the debugging and it's all this stuff. But the biggest limitation was that you have this kind of static app or whatever it is, or a website on your computer. You couldn't really do anything with it until recently. So Lovable AI Cloud came out a week ago, where it basically is like, oh, if you create an app, you can press a button, publish it, and actually have a fully functioning prototype. And so it's like, oh my gosh. So now the biggest limitation of like, I can prototype something, but I can't deploy it. Now I can prototype and deploy. very easily. And then the app that you just used, Firebase. So Firebase has been around for a while, but Firebase was just for deploying things, but it actually didn't have like a vibe coding studio. So now it has a studio and a native integration with a new product that they just released called Anti-Gravity, which is a pretty heavy duty, scalable coding machine. And then it connects to Firebase directly. So Google, in my opinion, like you and I have spent a lot of time talking about Google over the last couple of years of like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Not
honestly,
favorably.
no, I mean, but there have been times, right? There have been moments where like, oh my gosh, it's Google. Google's credited with writing the first paper on generative AI called Attention is All You Need. We actually, if you remember, our little Easter egg is actually dedicated to the authors of that paper in 2017, I think, 2016. And so, but every time there's a moment of brilliance, Google stepped in it. And then it was like, oh, there's this moment. And then the next day it would be like, nope, just kidding. And OpenAI is just dominated, right? And then Claude, Anthropic kind of second. But I will tell you, I think this one's for real. Gemini 3 came out a week ago. From all the tests, obviously it's outperforming everything. It's the most powerful model that exists right now. But to be honest, I think what's different now for me is it's fully integrated with everything else. I mean, email, calendar, all those things, cloud, but also Notebook LM or Anti-Gravity or Firebase or any other things that you need to do anything are fully integrated with like drag and drop simplicity. And I think it's going to, OpenAI just took a second position and they're going to have to learn how to do this because Google already owns ads and they already own search. And so it's a game changer in my opinion.
And they're already in front of everyone, whether you use AI or not. Right. So they're making you don't have to think about, well, what is ChatGPT? How do I get there? Right. Like it's now there's just a button in the tool that you are in every single day for hours. And it's offering suggestions to you so that you don't even really have to think about like that first step to get started. But the one that I haven't played around with Gemini as much as I should, I think probably some still biases from poor performance of, what was it, Bard? Google Bard before Gemini, right? But Nano Banana Pro is what I see everywhere.
Crazy.
Right? There was a friend of, the big 5 AI CEOs like Zuckerberg and Elon all having like frat parties, right? So they're smoking bongs in a parking lot or, doing keg stands or something like that.
That wasn't real.
It looks so damn real. Like that is we've been talking about that for a while, like is the point where you cannot tell what is real, what is not anymore.
Yeah. So Nano Banana is the name of their image generator. So if people are familiar with ChatGPT, create images, it's through their app called DALL-E or DALL-E 3. But Nano Banana has been around for a little while, but now it's fully integrated with Gemini 3 and it's insane. And because Google owns YouTube, so this is literally a couple hours ago I did this. There's an hour and a half, actually the Ilya one. The Ilya is an hour and a half interview. I wanted to send it to our team, but I knew it's like, watch this while you eat your sandwich. Like it's an hour and a half. It's pretty long. So instead, I actually took that YouTube video because Google owns YouTube. I put it into Notebook LM. Notebook LM fully integrated now. It will create an audio podcast, an 18-minute podcast, create a 7-minute video, but it'll also create an infographic. And it from the YouTube video without any prompt, just one button, it created using Nano Banana, like an amazing infographic image of an hour and a half podcast. And I was able to share all of that with in Slack and not even like say, yeah, if you want to listen to an hour and a half podcast, that's great. Like I do that because it's like how I kind of detox. Or I don't know. It's probably not healthy, but it's how I unwind a little bit and learn. And learning is important to me. So it's just absolutely crazy. So Nano Banana is just super, super powerful. People should definitely check it out and fully integrated.
Yeah, and Notebook, which again we've talked about many times. I forget who I was talking to about it, but basically, like it's so great at synthesizing information, and now even better that it could take an hour and a half long video, and within 3 minutes create an 18-minute video or podcast or info. Like, however you best intake information, it can create that for you. So it's like dynamic. Somebody referenced it as a dynamic Cliffs Notes, right? Like Cliffs Notes used to be, you had to read Pride and Prejudice for school, and you would go to Barnes & Noble and get the book of Cliffs Notes of Pride and Prejudice. Now, Cliffs Notes is best in infographic, great. If it's flashcards, great. Like, there is no limit to learning whatever it is you want to learn with these tools. And again, this is crap compared to what Ilya says is coming down the pike.
Hopefully none of us had stock in Cliff Notes. I mean,
Hopefully.
yeah. I mean, that was
Or at
big
least some of
money.
it.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
always like you would go to the aisle and to look at all the Cliff Notes and you look around to make sure no one's looking at you because they're like, you're a cheater. Like it was always like has this weird stigma. And now it's just, I mean, it's absolutely changed.
Cliff
So
got out
everyone,
when he should have.
right, maybe. Yeah, people should be paying attention to Gemini 3 with all those different tools. And all that to say is that, again, even thinking about 2026, I have a document right now where I'm doing goal setting. I'm really thinking about what do I want to achieve in 2026. And the title of it is Anything is Possible because that's my approach. And my first thing was to go to ChatGPT and be like, here's what I did last year. And to be honest, I'm not interested in any of that. Can you come up with like 20 ideas that are completely different and out of the box for ways to scale the impact of what I do while having me travel 20% less? And I'll be honest, out of like the 20 ideas, probably 16 were like solid ways that I would have never thought of on my own. And so if you approach things as anything is possible, I absolutely, and you use these models to help you kind of pull that thread because we're limited to like our own experiences and our own curiosity, you will find yourself in a really interesting position to do things differently and have fun doing it.
Yeah, we talk about tools a lot here because obviously, like the way to get into it is by using a tool. But Kyle Brand, who I reference a lot on here, he had a post on LinkedIn that said AI strategy or AI tools does not equal AI strategy, right?
Mm.
Just using Notebook LM or ChatGPT, even if you use it every single day, like that is not a strategy for your company. Your company is not going to move the needle significantly as an organization. And when we think about how companies can get started, like we are not far from seeing a one-person unicorn, a one-person billion-dollar company, because they're
Right.
building it in an environment where anything is possible. And so if you have an organization that is still thinking in 21st century terms or 20th century terms, right? You're never going to be able to like you need to think differently. You need to shift
Yeah.
differently. And it's not just let's use ChatGPT to help us write emails, but how would we reorganize ourselves or rebuild ourselves if AI was available from day one and then work backwards from there?
Well, it makes a lot more sense because at first I thought you said Kylo Ren was talking about AI, and then I was like,
He might have been.
he,
I didn't watch the later Star Wars movies. So.
Kylo Ren. He probably was talking about AI, and my other son Tate would know. He knows everything about. Actually, both of them do about Star Wars. That's even possible. We share this a lot where any best practice that predates November 30th, 2022 is outdated. But to be honest, any best practice that predates January 1st, 2025 is outdated. I know we're going to talk about this more next on our next podcast, looking back, but things that I thought were possible in January of 2025, when Notebook LM came out sometime throughout the year, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is nuts. And so, or just right around that time. And now agents and true vibe coding, like deployable resources, is an absolute game changer. This is where we see the acceleration. And Ilya was talking about this. It's like, look, we're not going to know it's here until it's here. And then it's here. It's going to scare the crap out of everybody. And that goes into like legislation for like, we have no legislation in the US and mainly, and I don't know if you saw what happened a few weeks ago. So like California passed the first bill to regulate AI and to put restrictions on large language models. Those are now, there's like all types of like activity now to basically any state that tries to intervene will actually be penalized. So we're living in this fully, entrepreneurial mindset of like, let all the flowers bloom. But when that happens, regulation will come. Like it will 100% come. And Australia released their national AI safety blueprint this week. And it's really solid. It's the first one that talks about making sure that AI is democratized to everyone, that it's really centered on providing equal access for everyone. And then it's safeguards as well. And so I think a lot of people should be paying attention to Australia. They've been really slow on the AI front, and it probably was intentional for them to just really think through what's going to matter and what's going to move the needle.
Yeah, and I know that we've been having a lot of conversations at Fundraising AI. Recently rolled out our updated framework to account for, again, what's coming, and also making sure that like guardrails are thought about beforehand as the tool is being built. And Kaz McGrath, Mina Das were huge in some of that language, Ben Miller. But helping us make sure that like it's not an afterthought. You don't go with, hey, we can do this thing, so let's just build a tool and then we'll figure out how to make it safe and ethical and reliable and beneficial down the road. But that is the premise of how everything should be built, especially in our sector. And then you go out and figure out how to do it. Right? You have the intention of end users, whose data is being used, how it's being used, and what's the benefit of your tool before just saying, oh, here's what's possible.
No, I think that's all good, and probably a good place for us to wrap up. I know we have a lot more to cover next week. There's studies there's just so many studies coming out on AI, and you and I are weeding through them kind of on a daily just to know kind of what's the middle on most of those things and trying to figure that out, bring it back to the podcast. But yeah, keep doing it. I think I'm going to add, as most of this year has been focused on curiosity, I'm going to add adaptability to that. And so
Great.
Moving that curiosity into adaptability and sprinkling in some intelligence and some, really good instincts. I do think it's an opportunity for a lot of people that are tired of the same and want to do things differently. And for those that don't, I think you got to get a bit more comfortable with change, because there's going to be a lot more coming.
A lot more coming. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, always a pleasure, Scott. I know we'll see each other again next week and have it'll probably be our last podcast of 2025. And then we'll move into 2026 and again, see what's possible.
Yeah. And happy birthday, ChatGPT.
I know, right? I didn't see any birthday cakes. So I did write an article about it.
Hopefully they sang a song at OpenAI.
They probably did. Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks all.